Well, hey everybody, Ranger Nick coming to you this month from the world's most traveled airport right here in Atlanta, hanging out and learning about how some of the bags that come into this country and the people that come here, how those things are inspected. And one of the folks who you might meet when you come here and you're coming from another country might be Officer Mashburn. Officer Mashburn, thanks so much for hanging out with me.
My pleasure, thank you.
Appreciate you spending some time. I know you have got some stories of things that you have seen here that have come into the airport by folks coming from other countries, but I gotta ask you, let's say I come back from the Caribbean, I've got my luggage, comes off the conveyor belt there. How is my luggage getting to a place like this where you might get a chance to inspect it?
Well, when travelers enter the country, one thing we emphasize the most is if they're going to carry any fresh fruits or vegetables, anything to plant in their garden, or any kind of meat or animal products, that they please declare it. Declare it to the primary officer, declare it anywhere along the process so that we have the opportunity to inspect those items to make sure they're not carrying any pests or diseases that could harm our country or our livestock or our crops.
So, and by declaring, I'm on the plane, I'm filling out that card on the plane, I'm being upfront with others that, hey, I've come from this country, I've purchased this fruit, I've purchased this headdress with feathers on it, I've purchased this animal part, I want to be upfront and let you know I might have something I'm not sure about. So it comes here, it's declared. What are some of the things you found just today here at the airport that are agricultural products that you've inspected?
Well, most of these items came from Peru and some of our other South American flights. We have some passion fruits. Those can be a fruit fly host. We have some avocados. These are actually cacao pods, the chocolate, what chocolate comes from. Wow. Some chili peppers, and any of these can carry various pests and diseases that can affect our crops in this country that we grow.
Interesting. So I got to ask the question. I know you've probably seen a bunch of interesting things. You have any good stories? Things that you've seen, agricultural product related? You know me, I got to ask. Anything cool, interesting, a funny story that you've seen that you have prevented a disaster here in the United States?
Well, what sticks out to me, the very first time I found Mediterranean fruit fly, and Mediterranean fruit fly is considered one of the world's 100 worst pests because it is so destructive to so many different fruits. The first time I found it was in a perfectly clean looking orange. It was a ripe orange. We had to seize from a traveler because of the countries they were coming from and the pests it could carry. So I started inspecting this orange because every time we find contraband, we inspect it for pests and diseases to see what might have come into the country. So I started inspecting this orange. It looked just fine on the outside, no bruises, no indication that anything could be inside. I started peeling away the outside peel, following our procedures, and sure enough, there were holes just under that peel layer, and digging in further, there were actually fruit fly larvae inside. So that's a caution to travelers. Even though the fruit may look perfect, there can still be pests on that fruit that could harm our country.
And that is incredible to know that you stopped this disaster that could have happened here. I want to talk about if I don't declare something, if I don't know to do that, how might you get a hold of that bag and look at some of the high-profile wildlife items that have come into the country? We'll do that next. Well, we just learned from Officer Mashburn about the seriousness of this problem and all the artifacts that come into this country, knowingly or unknowingly, that they're prohibited or not. And I'm joined by a professional with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Brian Downey. Hey, Mr. Downey, good to see you. Wildlife Inspector at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. This gentleman is somebody you may encounter if you come into the country through Customs and Border Protection. Maybe you're coming from the Caribbean. Maybe you're coming from South America. Coming in, you may interact with this gentleman. Sir, tell us, we're looking at some things on this table right here, some of the high-profile items that have come in. Tell us about the interaction you and I may have if I'm coming back from the Bahamas and I've got a suitcase and how we would interact.
Okay. Well, Nick, what we would do is that we would allow you to declare these items to us. You will verbally declare or electronically declare over in immigration. Okay. Once you're completed there, if you declare what you have, you'll be secondary to Fish and Wildlife and Agriculture area for an inspection. Okay. We will inspect your luggage, and then we will, look at what you've imported. From there, if you have something prohibited, we're going to request and determine whether or not you have a permit to import them. If you do not have a permit, then we're going to seize those items. A lot of things are confiscated that way because there are no permits.
And would you say that most of the stuff you're seeing, folks don't know that it's prohibited? They're just kind of ignorant to that, or they know and they're trying to hide it? What would you say?
Majority of the time, most Americans that have been on travel, they're just not aware. Those who are, say, in the business, they are, and they're trying to smuggle or get away with, importing something prohibited.
Yeah. So the law enforcement side of this is incredible. And think about the things that could be attached to these items, insects and other things that could influence the ag industry. I want to go look at the Beagle Brigade next and talk about that side of the inspection. But what an interesting look at some of this stuff. So let's go there next. Well, it's incredible work going on behind the scenes here at the world's most traveled airport here in Atlanta. You know, that bag that we looked at earlier with Officer Mashburn, those agricultural products, that was a declaration. I declared that, let's say, on a flight. She had a chance to look at it. There's also a way that maybe I could get randomly selected to go and have that bag be inspected. Now, what about this third way that involved that Chevy the Beagle? Officer Mashburn, tell us about that, what the viewers are looking at now.
Well, we have agriculture detector dogs that are just trained to sniff out fruits and vegetables and meat products. So that way, if a traveler forgets that they put something in their bag, or if unfortunately they tried to smuggle it in their bag, those dogs are there to sniff out anything.
And you saw Chevy there stopping me. We got down, found that apple in there, and I got to ask, when they found that apple, Chevy found that, what happens to that? That's not just thrown into a dumpster somewhere. What happens to that to keep things safe?
No, once we find any kind of agriculture contraband that could have something dangerous on it, it goes to a steam sterilizer. That's basically like a giant autoclave that steams the product until it's going to kill any pest or disease that's on it.
That's incredible. The seriousness of this issue. Officer Mashburn, thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you have been inspired by this segment and the work that these great folks do, I want you to take a look at this billboard that I'm standing in front of. If you're interested in this as a job, you ought to think about clicking on going to that website and checking that out. While you're online, you might want to check out the Farm Monitor Facebook page and then scoot on over to the Ranger Nick Facebook page. I love it when you do that. And until next time, for everybody at the Farm Monitor, I'm Ranger Nick, reminding you, as always, that enthusiasm is contagious. So pass it on. Y'all, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you right back here again next month. See ya.